How's everybody doing? I think you know, and welcome back to Cities Skylines, East Yorkshire, and the city of Kingston. And a real welcome back it is. It has been way too long since I've put out the last episode, but we're back. And in today's episode, it's going to be one of the most expansive builds we've ever done, and one that's going to increase the population of the city by nearly a third. It's also a build that I think deviates by far the most from what the city of Hull is in real life, and from even what I was envisioning kind of going forward in this series. I had briefly mentioned in the last episode, several weeks ago now, that I had kind of a unique idea in my mind for this area, and to be honest, I think what I ended up doing here worked out even better than I anticipated. What you're seeing being built first are what in the UK they refer to as drains. These are networks of waterways that either spin off on their own or occasionally loop in and out of the river. And these essentially exist to help funnel additional floodwaters away when flooding happens. And Hull in real life, which is on an estuary and on a river and is very flat, is extremely prone to flooding. I think in the late 2000s they had a very bad flood there. All of my friends had crazy stories about it, and it sounded like a really terrible tragedy for the city. And these are supposed to essentially alleviate that. But for the city of Kingston, what I really want that road to do is separate the residential areas, which will be to the left of there, and an extended industrial area to the right. I am still intending to finish the industrial area to the right of the river, which that might have been 15 episodes ago now. But I also wanted to get some more industry into the city. Just kind of quickly, I popped a few of these buildings down. We're not going to complete the entire industrial area in this episode because the city just didn't really need it yet, and I'm sure I could finish that off camera sometime. But most of this episode is actually going to be putting in high density residential housing, which is something that I've not really done at all in the city, is trying to make it look like Hull and not essentially putting in any high rises. But the problem in the city, as you can see right now on the screen, is that that green bar is persistently high. And I really want a city that is 50,000 maybe at the end of the series, and being only at 19 right now, with so many episodes done already, I needed to increase that. And by the end of the episode, I believe we'll be at about 25,000. But now the big problem that I really need to talk about. I think the save is broken. I'm quite confident the save is broken. I've tried to load it now several times. I even went and removed what I had been playing with, some new things that I had added in that I thought were causing that to happen. But as of right now, I cannot get it to work. I could likely go back to an earlier save, but I'd be losing everything done in this episode, which was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 hours worth of work. I didn't capture it all on camera. You're not going to be seeing it all here in the time lapse. But it was a lot of work, and I'm not quite sure I can get it exactly the way I had it this time again. Which leaves me with some hard decisions. First of all, it makes me very upset with myself because I actually had tried putting in the custom animation loader and some of those new movable bridges in the workshop. And I wanted to add those. I think they would look fantastic in this city. But those are the assets that I believe really broke the save. And stupid me, I usually create a new save file pretty regularly. But for this one, since I had actually planned on this being a 2-part episode, I hadn't saved it under a new file. So like I said, I'd have to go all the way back to the end of last episode and then rebuild all of this if I wanted to redo it. Now, I might give that a go at some point. I'm not officially proclaiming the series to be dead yet. However, there's going to be a little break coming up. I'm about to go on a much needed vacation. First time taking one since the start of COVID, so I'm very excited for that. So not going to be able to put any time into the game, and then I'm going to be rearranging some of the things in my apartment, trying to find a better place for my setup, my computers, my mic, and all that, which will hopefully even let me start putting together some better clips for you. So I'm hoping that sometime by the end of September that I'm going to have either this series fixed and up and running again, or just moving on to a new series. I have been doing a lot of work in the workshop, trying to get some assets in place and trying to figure out exactly what I want to do next. And I haven't really 100% decided yet. A New York 1-to-1 is still very much in the works, but just finding the right way to do it has been a real challenge for me. And I don't know, I've just been playing a lot of other games. I'm hoping that a lot of you are gamers of other kinds as well. But I've been playing a lot of this new roguelike RPG called Gunfire Reborn. Really enjoy that. Please check it out if you like that kind of stuff. It's a roguelite RPG FPS. And then I've also been playing Splitgate, which is a new free-to-play game, portal-based Halo-like shooter, which is a lot of fun. And then just, working and, again, trying to plan and take this trip. It's taking a lot out of me, so I'm trying to take a little bit of a break from Cities Skylines, but it's a real tragedy that once I did finally get back to it for this build, I had that second episode planned that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull it off. And here's exactly what that was going to be. So as you start seeing me put in all the residential buildings here, you'll notice I do a little bit of layering. Some of these buildings I kind of put 2 or 3 or 4 in the same exact spot, because you know how it is in Cities Skylines. These buildings often only have 12 households in them, even though they're a giant, tower block. So I like to increase that to make it more realistic. But once I started putting all of the people in there, the main roundabout in the city, that northwestern roundabout that we've featured so many times, it can just not handle the traffic anymore, to the point where the only way I can get the traffic back up was to despawn it using Traffic Manager. The traffic, which prior to this build had been in the 70 to 80% range pretty reliably, was down to like 34% and just not moving whatsoever. And even after clearing it, the despawning, it immediately got clogged up again. And a lot of that traffic is essentially moving north and south, but also north and south and west. And while Hull does not have this in real life, when you have traffic in Cities Skylines, the buses just can only do so much to pick up the slack, since they run on the same roads as the cars and the other vehicles. And my plan is to put trams in. So I was going to run a tram line next to the drain, basically in between the drain and that tree line, kind of going up and eventually joining the freight line. I was also going to replace that freight line, which right now is on raised ground on a berm, and replace that with more of a brick kind of railroad structure. Again, just trying to really intentionally move further and further away from what Hull is in real life, while still maintaining a lot of those characteristics, but just doing what I can within the game to make this city more functional. And I was so excited to log back in, and when I realized the save was broken, it was exactly when I went in to go and do that build. I had everything installed and I was ready to go. And then again, I think it is the custom animation mod that might have busted it, but I can never really be sure. I don't want to blame the mod. These things happen when you're running so many mods and so many assets. Cities Skylines is a very finicky game, and it finally bit me for good this time. So I'll just kind of talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the background. Those are now the 2 largest buildings in the city. So those are some of the condo assets that are so popular on the workshop. Beautiful buildings, and with the parking garage behind them, I thought might have been a little bit much, but I actually think it really looks nice the way it turned out. And you'll see me here too, building some more bus stops, and I think I even put a bus line in. I'm not sure if I had that as part of the footage or not. I edited all this footage like a week ago, and I'm only just recording the audio now. But I think I was a little bit optimistic in hoping that the buses would alleviate a lot of the traffic in the city, and they help. There's hundreds of people using the buses, but it's really just not enough. And I also snuck in this bike lane. So this is a new bike lane asset. I haven't used it before, but it's really nice. I like that green color. And again, having that trail be there, and I wanted to put the tram next to it. I might have had to smush things around a little bit and play a little bit, but in the end, I'm really happy with how that kind of tree lane drain worked out, and then kind of turning this area. Imagine that the nicer, newer buildings are closer to the main ring road of the city. And that was area that was probably redeveloped most recently. And then every layer you go back in the street grid north of the city gets older and older and older. So slightly older looking high rises, then slightly more post-war looking flats. And then towards the end of the episode, I believe we'll be building another giant complex behind there, which is one of my favorite builds I've ever done. Just really came out cool the way I put that down. And look at all those people scurrying. Like I said, the game is not often designed to handle an influx of 6,000 residents in one session. We're already up about 2,000 people right now, and I've barely just begun. There is still quite a bit to do. Also around here, just trying to layer in a lot of green space. If you take a look at Hull from satellite view on Google Maps or any UK city really, you'll see this in every kind of neighborhood housing complex. There's at least one or two areas of just green, just an empty space, just a field. And here, since I don't think fields look as great just by themselves in Cities Skylines with a lot of detailing, I just threw in a few of those soccer nets because I love that asset. I think it looks cool, and it definitely works in that spot there. We'll get to the section a little bit later, but I did want to call out again that a lot of people have been clamoring in the past in the comments for me to take more inspiration from other cities, and the complex that'll be getting built in just a little bit was inspired by a complex in Manchester, where very car focused, so that the kind of the driveway around all of the apartment buildings is also the parking. So it's just kind of so car focused. Oh, here we go. Now you get to see just the absolute disaster of traffic, and I'm gonna shove in a bus line here, and it's gonna try to help. It really is. I was so optimistic that it would do what I needed it to do, but it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen the way that I wanted it to, and it's a real shame. It really is. It's sad to see a city that I think my mistakes came early on by trying to let so much traffic be focused on that main roundabout. It works in a city like Hull, but when you're building it in the game, it's just a traffic nightmare. And I think if I were to continue to build out and do the northern city, do a city on the other side of the river, really do some of the plans that I had originally laid out in the early episodes, and maybe have a chance of distributing the traffic a bit better. But I also feel like doing a small city like this is very difficult to grow the population large without it having a lot of highways. And I feel like this part of the UK is not an area that has a lot of highways. And it's probably one of the reasons why Hull has absolutely ridiculous traffic. I'm generally against highways and I want to see mass transit, but there is a time and a place for them. And the fact that Hull only has one highway through its bottom layer, it really means that you have to go through the city to get out of the city. There is no real ring road. There are A roads, and what I did build off camera was, in planning for the second part of this episode, was I built all the A roads looping around, connecting into the northern city. I really planned this out. I was so ready to go and planning to do maybe some of those outer cities and do some bigger builds, but maybe it won't happen now. I don't know. I'll be curious. Let me know down in the comments. Do you want to see this continue? Do you want to see me put the effort in to rebuild what was lost and try again? Or would you rather see me just move on to a new series entirely? Because I'm definitely not done with this game, and I'm definitely not done with this channel. So things might get a little bit slower for a while, and I apologize for that, but we're going to get back to it soon enough, and we're going to keep building some cool things. And here's what I was talking about before, this really interesting apartment complex where I used the parking lot roads, and they just kind of fit in perfectly. And I eventually layered in some parking spot assets and a bunch of trees and just a really quick, really big space taker upper. Just, the best way that I can find right now to grow this city quickly, because the whole point of this episode and the second part that might never happen is that, like I said in the last episode, that I'm really, really tired of the city not growing fast enough. I want it to move. I want it to be exciting. And I want to get some awesome screenshots out of it. We need to be blowing up more on Reddit, right? But you know, I'm still really stoked about this, and I'm really happy with the way this build came out in general. We have just a couple more minutes of footage here, and there is no live play today because the save is broken and I can't get into the file to make a live play. But I did get enough footage in there for the cinematics at the beginning of the episode. That's the word. Why do I always forget that word? There will be cinematics. You saw one at the beginning. There'll be one here at the end. Might be the last one for a while, so take it in. Definitely savor it, enjoy it. As always, I appreciate your presence here on the channel. If you haven't already, hit like. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. Even though there might not be anything for a little while, but I'll promise I'll make it worth your while. I'm also thinking about doing some different kind of videos, non-Cities Skylines based videos. I like doing a lot of trivia, and I think trivia, geography, Cities Skylines, kind of all in the same mindset, and maybe doing some Sporkle type videos. If you know what that is or would like to see that, let me know. Just jot it down over there, and we'll see what we can do. But that is going to be just about it for this episode here. Thank you so much for your time as always, and we'll see you soon. Bye.